It's our pleasure to welcome now Roy Turner, Executive Director, Elvis Presley Birthplace. Hey, Roy, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. So tell us about Tupelo's Elvis Festival and all the events around that coming up.
Well, actually, we kicked everything off Tuesday evening with a literary look at how Elvis became the king of rock and roll here at the birthplace, where Tom Brown interviewed two very distinguished authors about Elvis's early career. Last night we had our opening gala. Today, as we speak, we're getting ready to have the youth competition here at the birthplace. And then tomorrow, this is Thursday, so tonight and tomorrow they will begin the competition to see who's going to be the next winner to represent Tupelo.
Very cool. So, Roy, why do you think there's still so much interest and intrigue with Elvis Presley?
Good question. Because so many people that come through here have been born after he left this world. Yet his impact is still tremendous. I find, of course, they love his music, but I think they're even more intrigued with his story. I find it very interesting. I rarely, if ever, hear anybody from the USA make this comment. But most of our visitors, we have about 129,000 a year. Most of them are international travelers. And I can't tell you how many of them will say, Elvis was the American dream. He fulfilled the American dream. It's almost like a Cinderella story to them. And to be honest, it always has been to me. His story is so inspiring. He relates to young people today. We use him as a teaching tool with children. Born poor. So many children can relate to that today.
Yep.
Bullied, made fun of because of his hand-me-down clothes, because of his tenacity that he was going to play that guitar and sing, whether you wanted to hear him or not. The child of an ex-con. You know, kids today are dealing with that, so they can relate to that. And we have a lot of school children come through. The Elvis movie a couple of years ago certainly was a shot in the arm. It educated a lot of people. That's when I saw demographics change in younger people. It increased. And in African Americans, it increased. But he still touches. And his music touches people.
So do you find that maybe some of these young people, as you indicated, that weren't even born until after he left the earth, do they perhaps have an interest in emulating him and following his path?
Some do. In fact, we had one in here, this is Thursday, just this week, that was dressed Elvis-y. He was probably 11, and he had gotten interested in him in the last couple of years, and his mother and father said that's just all he listens to now, and all he wants to do is learn more about Elvis.
Wow, that's pretty neat.
Roy, not many of us can have that kind of influence after we've left this world.
No doubt about it. It's iconic and will endure forever, I believe. What about people, Roy, who are not from Mississippi, are, of course, fans of Elvis and again know him, know his music, his movies, his work, and so forth, but maybe have never been to Mississippi, and they attend for the first time the Elvis Festival there in Tupelo. What sort of reaction do you sometimes see?
A lot of people are blown away by a number of things. Of course, Mississippi's always sort of had a bad rap in the press.
Yeah.
When they come here to the birthplace, they're expecting to see this little house. And they see this 15-acre, beautifully landscaped park with a museum, his childhood church, the chapel, statues, storyboards with quotes from people that knew him as a child. And they're blown away. They are also blown away by the hospitality. I'll see their post or they'll tell me personally, everybody has been so open and so friendly and so helpful. Well, that is Mississippi. And it gives us a chance to showcase who we are as a state because a lot of people are expecting Mississippi from maybe 40 or 50 years ago, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I'm just always interested, honestly, in the reaction from people because you're right. They perhaps have a negative perception of the state,
Mm-hmm.
which is largely, I think, driven by the media in Hollywood, and then they get here and they find out it's not that way, and
Yeah,
they're typically just
absolutely.
shocked. Yeah, and this is Mississippi's favorite son here, Elvis. I think goes a long way towards dispelling some of those negative misconceptions.
I was about to say you can't have a better calling card than Elvis.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty cool. So, how many people do you expect to be at the festival?
Um, we have moved back to the Lyric Theater, which is historic for us. It's where Elvis went and saw films as a child. It's where he would go in the front door, and his African American friend Sam Bell would go in the side door, and then they would sit together in the segregated section. And Sam said nobody ever bothered us. But unfortunately, it only holds about 450 people. So our crowd is limited in that we have less seating available.
Yeah.
But it's
Okay.
going to be a lot more intimate. Uh, that's where we started. And I'm really glad to see us go back to the Lyric. It ties a lot of the history, a lot of the Elvis history into the festival. In
What?
fact, in fact, he won his first talent show at the Lyric when he was 8 years old. It was put on by Baker and Baker Furniture, and he won free movie tickets for a week for he and his parents.
Huh. Interesting. Then you got the hardware store right there downtown where he purchased his first guitar. Is that
Yes,
right?
and I'm 73. It has looked and smelled that way my entire life. I'm sure it looked and smelled that way when Elvis was here. There's an X on the floor where he stood. The original oak counter where they bought the guitar is there. And it really is a step back in time. Tupelo Hardware is one of the jewels in our crown.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. What about other recording artists and musical talent? What sort of interaction have you had with them about Elvis? Just because he inspired so many through the years.
Yes.
His style, his play, his
Not
tone, and
all, not all, but quite a few of the entertainers that play our arena here come out to the birthplace. Um, in fact, one Saturday I got a phone call, and it was Josh Turner's manager, country western singer, and he had his family on a month-long vacation and would like to tour the birthplace, but would rather do it when we weren't so busy.
yeah,
And it just turned out they were going to be here on a Sunday morning. We don't open until 1 o'clock. So I gave his family a personal tour. The actor William Forsythe, he's been in about 60 films over the years. He and his girlfriend were out here visiting and mentioned they would like to get married. So I set up I became their wedding planner. Got the
huh,
photographer, got a blues singer. I said, "Do I need to get a preacher?" He said, "No, my best friend's a priest. He's coming
huh,
to do the ceremony." And they keep in touch. Another actor, Joseph Cannon, who was very interesting because Joseph is African American and a huge Elvis fan. And I said, "How'd you become an Elvis fan?" He said, "Well, my grandfather listened to Elvis all the time." And I want to think he grew up in Chicago, but I'm not sure. I said, "Well, did your buddies not raise the devil with you listening to this racist?" He said, "Yeah, but I told them different." Uh, I love those stories. Elvis, in his own way, changed our world. And I think it's a fine example for all of us. Elvis didn't intend to change anything, he was just doing his thing. But you drop a stone and it creates a ripple, and then that ripple can create a bigger wave and a bigger wave and eventually become a tsunami. But it starts with each one of us, starting our ripple. And Elvis certainly did many times.
Gotcha. Yeah. Roy